So, welcome back to the 34O podcast. Today, we're exploring a question that seems simple, yet has been surprisingly controversial. What does it actually mean to be a man today? For generations, masculinity was often associated with strength, stoicism, and providing. Today, many men feel caught between conflicting messages. Be strong, but don't dominate. Be vulnerable, but don't appear weak. Be ambitious, but don't sacrifice your family. My guest today has spent years helping people transform not only their bodies, but also their mindset through discipline, fitness, and personal responsibility. He's built a community around becoming stronger from the inside out. I'm excited to explore where physical strength meets emotional maturity, where discipline meets compassion, and whether becoming a better man starts in the gym or somewhere much deeper. Joey, welcome. I'm so glad to have you here.
Thank you very much. I'm glad to be here.
So I think we're going to just dive straight into it. And everyone sees the coach today, but few know the man before all of this. So who was Joey 10 years ago?
Oh, that was a different child altogether. So, I was a late bloomer into this health and fitness thing. Let's get that out of the way. I didn't start until I was about 31 years old, and I'm 39 now. Now, 10 years ago, I was a big drinker. I was still somewhat heavy into drugs. I was very self-harming, very into self-harming techniques and things like that. I couldn't hold down a job. That was one thing that still sticks with me is like, how could I never hold down a job? I'd get fired or I'd quit or I'd get drunk one night and just not show up. You know what I mean? And I look back on I look back on myself 10, 15 years ago, and it's almost like watching a movie. You know, and it doesn't seem real to me now. It seems
Yeah.
like I don't recognize it. I don't know how to put it into words sometimes because it just seems so distant and so surreal that I was ever like that, but I was like that for so long.
So
And
yeah,
yeah,
what's a defining moment when you really realized that you need to become someone different?
it was an accumulation of a few different things. Like I became a father, and that was the first step. When I had my daughter, I realized like I need to start making changes. I come from a long line of dark messed up things, and I was already starting to see that I was repeating the cycles, and I knew that if I brought life into this world and continued on the path I was, then some of the things that happened to me as a child would have repeated onto my child, and I just wasn't about to have any of that. So that's when I immediately quit the drugs and said no more to that stuff. I immediately started cutting back on drinking a lot and started looking at ways I was going to improve my health and doing all that. And by that point, I'd already been done drugs for a little bit, but I'd still like once a year or something like that damper, right? But at that point, I was like, no, I'm done. So that would have been like the base of it, and then a few other things happened around that time. That my mom getting really sick and passing away, like that's happened in the last few years. Like there's been a lot of things that have happened in the last 9 years that have turned me into who I am right now.
Hmm. It's impressive what you're talking about here, and that it just shows accountability, like we talked about before, you know. And I think it's impressive to see that you're walking the path.
Well, just what are the choices, right? It's either do this or do the opposite or just do nothing. And I've lived my life seeing what that other side looks like. I grew up seeing what happens when you prioritize drugs over family and you prioritize yourself and your self destructiveness over everything else in life. And I can tell you right now, I've seen it from multiple people growing up. Not one of them turned out okay from it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It all turned out
And
bad.
yeah, I definitely can relate to that.
I wasn't going to be a statistic. That's all I knew.
And you often talk about discipline. And what taught you discipline? Was it pain, sports, failure,
Fear, fear,
fear?
fear. Honestly, it was fear that taught me discipline, and fear of not being able to, fear of repeating all the things that I grew up watching, fear of
Yeah.
never being who I knew, not who I knew I should have been, but who I like had this envision of me growing up. I always thought that I was going to do something with my life and break out of the chains of the things I was trapped in, right?
Yeah.
I always had this fear that I was just going to grow up to die alone and be a nobody. And I wasn't, I was just going to work your 9 to 5 and be miserable like everyone else and drink until I died. And like I had all these fears constantly. And that really drove me to be like, okay, well, if I have all these fears and these are what's causing these fears, there's only one person that can do something about it, and that's me. So that started that train of discipline pretty quickly.
Yeah, and yeah, we all can take self accountability, and I think what I've seen in life is that it starts with self awareness. I think a lot of people even lack self awareness today, right?
Yeah, for the most part, it's easy to do. Sometimes I have to catch myself too, right? Like
Yeah, nobody's perfect.
nobody's perfect at the end of the day, but as we were touching on before, I think social media and the expectations of social media and what people view on social media really does contort people's mindsets when it comes to their own self and things like that. So that makes it harder, right?
Yeah, definitely, definitely. So one other thing here that we talk about masculinity, the word masculinity has become very polarized today. And when you hear the phrase healthy masculinity, what does that actually mean to you?
Honestly, as you were saying, the word masculinity almost as soon as you say it, it almost like puts a bad taste in people's mouths today in today's day
Yeah.
and age. I find that a lot, right? And because there is the toxic side of things that, as we were talking about before, runs rampant. But when we talk about healthy masculinity versus like toxic masculinity, they're very opposite things. I find like the toxic masculinity is very self-serving. It's all what can I do for myself, and that's the opposite of what real masculinity is to me. Real masculinity is like, okay, what can I do for my family, my community, and yes, I need to take care of myself and make sure that I'm okay to do those things. So that has to be priority number one is making sure I'm healthy and I'm good to go. But I'm not doing it out of a selfish reason. I'm doing it because I know my daughter needs me to be happy and healthy to take care of her. That I have bills to pay. I have people I want to help. I have money I want to make. I have goals I want to accomplish. Right. And to
Hmm.
me, that's masculinity showing up where it matters. If you walk down the street and you see like an old lady struggling to open a door and she's got a bag full of groceries, are you just going to keep walking or are you going to take 2 seconds and help her open the door? You know what I mean?
The small things.
There's the small things. There's a local fire and the community is getting together to rebuild their house. Are you just going to sit at home and watch the game or are you going to go down with your toolkit and help? Like, that to me is what masculinity is. It's not going to clubs with your suit and tie and driving Ferraris and smoking cigars. That's all that's all fine and dandy, but like that's what most people think being a man is, and
Yeah.
that's just all materialistic shit that is doesn't nobody's gonna remember how many cigars you smoked when you die. Nobody's gonna remember how many suits you were wearing at what club. But people always remember how you showed up for them. People are always gonna remember the type of person you are,
Yeah.
right? That's what lasts.
I mean, you mentioned
So
here that you almost get a bad taste in the mouth when you hear the word masculine, right? So, do you think society has really become uncomfortable with like the masculine energy?
yes, I unfortunately, yeah, it's there's been a huge pushback against it, right? A lot of men don't even like, and I don't want to use this in the wrong term, but a lot of men don't really seem to be very manly anymore, right? A lot of guys are walking around shoulders hunched down, their necks are swaying, they're not presenting themselves as masculine, right? Like, I still do believe in like that masculine energy of being like, you show up, you stand up straight when you meet somebody, you shake their hand and look them in the eye. Like those to me are still masculine traits that I feel like have really fallen off over the years. And
Yeah. I sometimes feel it's for me masculinity is a lot about it's not about like you said it's not about the cars, the drinks or clothes you wear. It's much more about actually how people feel around you when you're in the room,
especially,
from my point of view.
no, that's I said how you present yourself, how you show up for
Yeah,
people. That's all going to play into that, right?
exactly. So when we think about, I mean, you obviously work in a gym. You have a lot of young men, kids coming in there. So what qualities do you think young men are missing today?
Confidence. There's a huge lack of confidence in men. They don't know how to talk to women. They're shy. They're timid. They're scared.
Yep.
And that's the only thing that I can think of. I think it all boils down to that one thing is the lack of confidence. And I don't know where it stemmed from, right? Like I didn't grow up with them. I didn't have kids that are that age at that time. So it's like for me, and I didn't have friends that had kids around that age either, right? So it's like a small pocket where I'm kind of confused at like where did all your confidence go as men? Like I remember when I was 19, we had no problem talking to girls or going out and doing things, playing sports, doing all this sort of stuff. But like I look around my gym sometimes and more of the women are like lifting heavier than the guys are, and they're showing up more consistently than guys are, which is great, but it's like 15 years ago, it was the exact opposite, right? So we've seen a huge polar shift even in that regard too. And it's,
Yeah, and I think that actually is quite true. And if you think about that, if you think about the psychologist Carl Jung, he talks about that everybody has like a masculine and a feminine within. But as a man, we need to really, it's about holding direction and the leadership, the stewardship that we talked about, right?
mhm.
And I think a lot of women today are in their masculine so much because they need to provide, they need to work, they need to build their careers. And that makes men very confused about how to even show up with a woman because they don't even know. And I think you even touched on it yourself that you're making your choice about how you would change your life. I think a lot of men are inheriting their views about how to look at women, if you will, right? In some way.
Yeah.
And in today's world, I think we're even just more confused than ever.
Oh, 100%. I said I've been single now for about a year and a half, so I'm new into the whole modern dating world. So I've talked to many, not many, but I've talked to quite a few females who share what you just that sentiment you just shared about the female having to live in that masculinity. You see it in
Yeah.
their dating profiles. They'll put it in there. I just want to be my feminine self. I just want to let my feminine side show. And it's like it's a cry for help at this freaking point. Like women don't want to be the man, but they have been forced into that role, and by which turn have turned the modern man into more of the feminine role. But
And
the
that,
men don't realize that you caused this.
yeah,
Like
and I think, yeah, and I think a lot of men also feel, I feel like they don't, when they don't do their work with themselves to become like self-aware, they're going to continue being completely lost in that sense.
exactly. And that's where I think therapy is actually a good thing for some people because
Yeah.
you get shit on a lot, but at the end of the day, what's the alternative? And that's why I always tell the guys at the gym, like, go try it out for a couple of weeks. What's the worst that's gonna happen? You got to talk to somebody. The best that's gonna happen, you might get a different perspective. Like you might get the tools to actually help you navigate a couple of different things and can start setting yourself on a path where you do have a bit more confidence. Maybe you can go talk to that girl that you've been looking at for the last 6 weeks.
Exactly. Um, and I think you're a father yourself, and I guess you also work with fathers, right?
Yep.
So, what responsibilities do you think fathers carry that perhaps aren't really talked about enough?
A lot. I find, and that's one thing that saddens me. And this isn't just coming from me as a father, but I feel fathers do get the back end of the stick a lot when it comes to parental anything,
Mhm.
right? Um, so I feel like it's tricky because like women and men have been showing up kind of evenly when it comes to like the jobs and stuff like that for a while now. Like I can't remember the last time I remember where the guy went to work and the wife stayed at home, and that was like common, right? It still happens, but it's not nearly as common. But there's still this, even when things are the way they are in society, for example. Like right now, we live in a time where rent has skyrocketed, groceries cost an arm and a leg. It's almost impossible for me to provide a normal lifestyle for a family working even 50 hours a week, having gone to school, having built up my profession. I still struggle with that, right? So you have these guys that are now taking that load on themselves. The women don't necessarily take that load on. Yes, they're going to work. Yes, they're trying to help provide, but when it comes to the actual stress and that feeling of, because it's inherent in us to want to be able to provide, right? We want to be able to do that. We do not want our children, our wives to suffer or to have to go
Yeah.
without. And when they do, we take that as a personal responsibility that we've done something that haven't we haven't shown up in the way we should have, or we haven't provided the way we should have.
Yeah.
And so I feel guys have to, and fathers really have to bear the weight of that. And it's not even our fault 90% of the time, because society has designed us in a way to make it that way.
I mean, we're taught to perform. That's the thing, right? As men.
Emotionless robots, yeah, yeah, like in a sense.
Yeah.
But we have to bear the weight when we can, and I feel like that's a huge problem. Like, yeah, obviously we've always had to like. I feel like the whole silence thing and not being able to share emotions isn't nearly as prevalent as it used to be. I feel guys are opening up a lot more. I talk to guys all the time. We sit in the sauna and we shoot shit. I know guys talk to their wives a bit more, and it's not
Mhm.
as bad as it used to be. But the way society is pushing things is making new issues, and they're making us as fathers feel very weak and feel
Yeah.
very low about ourselves, even though we are applying ourselves and doing our absolute best. Like, I've been looking for a secondary job now for about a month, right? Trying to
Mhm.
make a little bit of extra income. Um, think I've gotten a call back? No. And it's like, so I know that I'm trying. So when the other people are coming to be like, I've applied to 100 places, I haven't gotten, I'm like, I believe it. Like, I can see that you've been trying. And so we need to change things as a societal structure too. And the guys have to realize that when things are like this, it's not our burden to fully bear in that regard. We can't tear ourselves down and hold ourselves to that level of,
But it's just a inhumane stress, right?
yeah, in a sense, I guess.
I mean, if you put that on yourself like that, it's going to be, yeah, I think it's,
But we do. It's inherent. As I said, it's built within us. At least it used to be. I don't know if it still is with a lot of these kids, but I know with me, if I'm short $10 on groceries, that is the absolute worst possible thing in the world. Like, it doesn't happen, but like that to me is like a huge fear of mine. Like not being able to pay rent 1 month. Like, I
yeah,
think about this shit every single day, right? I know my ex doesn't, because like I help pay for, like, when we're together and stuff like that. Like, she didn't, because she knew no matter what, I would always say, no, if you're sick, you stay home. Well, the kid's home, you stay home. Like, I would always be
yeah,
the one to still go to work. If the kid ever had to stay home sick, she would stay home. Like, it was very, you'd quickly find out that if things were the way we'd want them to be, a lot of people would fit back into those roles very quickly. You wouldn't find that masculinity would be so negatively talked about, because it'd be very common again. It would be the husband goes, he works, he provides for the family, the wife stays at home, nurtures the home, and makes sure everything's taken care of there. And the only reason why that's no longer a thing is because society has pushed us into not being allowed to do that anymore. You
yeah.
used to be able to work 40 hours a week and buy a house and do all that sort of stuff. You can't anymore. And I feel guys really bear all the weight of that, which affects their masculinity.
I think, I mean, I can see a street here in Europe now, and particularly here, like in Sweden, where I am, we see a lot of young parents, for example, dividing the time you stay home with the kids. So here we have a very good system. You can actually stay home for over 400 days with a kid,
Oh,
right?
wow.
Which is quite amazing. And you can split it between the man and the woman, but it also means then that the woman actually goes back to work after maybe 7 to 9 months or something like that. Most maybe stay a year. And then the man will stay home the rest of the time. But you almost look on one side as a man, you're almost looked down on if you're not staying at home with your kid. That's on the one side. But the other thing is, kids, when they're small, they do need their mother, particularly for emotional safety and then the whole security for them, right? And I think we're creating traumas for kids in a way that we haven't really seen the result of it yet, right? Because people are putting them in kindergarten very quickly or stuff like that.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. A lot of people have steered away from like remember like the old 40s and 50s, like the old trad wife kind of
Yeah.
situation and all that sort of stuff. And people have really like, that's considered really toxic, right? But I also look at the families back then, and uh, maybe they were onto something, because I know what I see in the world right now, sure as shit ain't working. I don't see happy families anymore. I don't see the Sunday dinners and like the nightly dinners and like the family days. I just don't see it nearly as much as I used to. Like, even on holidays around here, like Christmas isn't nearly as like family orientated as it used to be. And I feel like that all bleeds into that, right? Like
Yeah, I think.
I'm like one of those people like a bit more old school. Like when I go take a girl out, I still pay for dinner and do all that sort of stuff. And I do believe that like when you have a kid, the father should be the one to go back to work. And if there's a reason why the father would have to stay home, then sure, there's a medical reason or a financial reason, something like that. But I don't think the father should just stay home and take that time away from the mother to kid because I feel that has always been the most positive outcome, right?
Yeah, I think
But I
that.
don't hold anyone against that either. Like at the same point, like that's just my own personal belief. Now, I'm a firm believer. Like we can have our own personal beliefs of what we would do,
Yeah,
but that doesn't give us the right to look down on somebody for having a difference of the way they would do things. I would never look at a father and look down on him for spending time with his kid while the wife went back to work. If that's what they decided was the best for their family, who the fuck am I to say otherwise?
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, I think. I mean, I think there are ways there. I guess you can find a good balance, and I think that's where. Yeah, I think society today is sort of has been moving away, I guess, from the norm. And I think both men and women are so much in their masculine and performing and delivering and doing stuff without actually being present with the kids, let it be man or woman, right?
No, it is,
Um,
but we have to look at what makes a man feel masculine too, right? Not just what a society looks at masculinity, but we as men ourselves, like what do we view ourselves when do we feel the most masculine? That kind of slightly looks different with every man. When you ask this question to like 10 different men, they're going to give you a slightly different answer, probably, of what to them is the most masculine feature on them or the most masculine trait. Sorry, not feature,
yeah,
but the most masculine trait. One person might say it's, being there for my daughter every day. One person might say it's going to the gym every day and having big muscles. One person might say it's having a ton of intellect. Um, so I do find it interesting. Like masculinity is a very big scope, but we can kind of like sum down to the masculine role from the older kind of style of ways of like again providing, protecting, the stoicism. Like when shit
mhm.
hits the fan, can are you gonna panic and crumble, or are you able to like stay calm and like take care of situations for the most part?
Yeah, and I think it also takes courage to actually show emotion and vulnerability as well when you are in those positions, right?
Mhm.
That
Oh,
actually, for
100%.
me,
Yeah.
that is much more strength than like you mentioned. I think you mentioned before as well here when you actually say that you talk about your emotions and show your emotions. First of all, I think women find that extremely erotic in one way, to be honest. When a man is showing himself vulnerable, I think a lot of guys would actually be surprised how successful they would be when they dare to be vulnerable with a woman, right? In
Let's
one
just say
way.
you don't have to pretend to be a dick or a jackass twenty four
No,
seven or like
no,
as you said, there's a balance to it too, right? You don't want to be like overtly emotional 24/7. There's
no,
a
no,
time
no.
and place for everything. But yeah, 100%. Like my grandma and grandpa. My grandpa and grandpa were like the perfect example of like a healthy relationship. And I'm so glad I had that in my life, even if it was
Yeah.
for a short period of time. Because you got to see it when like my grandpa would get home after a stressed out day. Instead of like lashing out or drinking a bunch of beer, he just, oh, honey, I had a shitty day at work. And, they would talk for 5 minutes. You'd get him a beer or something like that. But it always felt normal to me for a man to express how he was feeling that day. It was really weird to me to kind of step out as I was getting older into society and see how much it was looked down upon for a man to share his emotions. And I never got on board with that. I was always like that, looked at as like a mama's boy and like a little like girly, I
Yeah.
guess, in that sort of sense. Growing up, I got made fun of a lot for that stuff. I made a post actually a few weeks ago talking about how I cry when I watch PS I Love You recently. Like I have
Hmm.
that like sensitive side, I guess what you want to call it. And so it was really weird for me to see so many men that pretend they don't have emotions or feel like they can't share their emotions because it was never like that in my household, even though I like had other issues, but I had my grandma and grandpa to kind of show me that's not normal, right? And that was the
Yeah.
most normal relationship I had to go off of. So
That's
you
beautiful.
are right though.
Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
So people think fitness is a lot about muscles, right? And you've coached enough people, I think, to know that's rarely the real issue at times. What do you think people actually are fighting when they walk into a gym?
Demons. We're all fighting demons in some way, shape, or form. It's honestly, you ask anybody, I ask this question to people all the time, and it's very true. Like, we all have stress in our life, right? Whether
Yeah.
it's work stress, family stress, whatever stress it is, and the gym gives us an outlet for that. Some people, sure, are just there to build muscles. They want it to be their career. They're bodybuilders. That's their whole thing. It's their passion. I love lifting weights. For me, it's an endorphin release, like it's a dopamine release, right? I get high when I go and lift weights. So to me, I chase it. Like, and I actually consider myself overtrained a lot of the time because I work at the gym. I always have the availability to train all the time, and I love it so much. And anytime I get stressed, it's almost an unhealthy mechanism at some points. Because I'll go in, it's like, okay, I'm just going to go work out for 2 hours on, right? But I feel like that is a very common thing. Like, it's just a place where you can go. It's fair, right? You either
Yeah.
lift the weight or you can't. There's no cheating. There's no nothing, right? You go in there, you put your head down, you lift your weights, it's you and the weights. I don't know, there's something very blissful about that. And then you really do feel like you can accomplish things when you start hitting new weights and you start hitting those
Yeah.
numbers. Like, I never thought I could do this before. I never thought that bleeds over into real life. And I don't think people realize that when you set these little mini goals in the gym to like lift a new PR in your squat or to show up every day for 4 days in a row for the next month, you start realizing, okay, if I can do that, maybe I can apply for that job and maybe get that job. Maybe I
Mm.
can go and ask that girl for her number. Maybe I can start that business I've been wanting to start. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, exactly. It's confidence. So on that though, do you think, I mean, we talked about this a bit before as well. Do you think discipline heal parts of a person's identity, do you think?
yes, absolutely. Parts,
Parts.
right? If you are undisciplined and you're not showing up for yourself and you're just kind of going through the motions of life or less, and then you start applying discipline to certain aspects of your life, whether it be, as I said, even if it's just basic hygiene. If you're the type of person who doesn't brush his teeth in the morning and make his bed or fold his clothes or anything, and you just start even that little bit of disciplined practice of doing that, you will start noticing positive effects of it,
Mm.
right? So the more you do it, the more positive effects are going to happen. And before long, that starts to change your brain. You start to realize certain things. As I said, you start making your bed, you start showing up to work on time with a positive attitude, maybe start going to the gym once a week. You're going to notice people around you notice that too, right? It's going to elevate your mood. It's going to make you feel better. And then the more you do it, the more disciplined you are in those things, the better your life becomes. All of a sudden, 3 years later, 4 years later, you're looking at yourself as a whole different person with all these things that you never thought you could have done before.
And that's,
Again, it stems back to when we were talking about beforehand, where I look back 10 years ago and it's like a picture dream that I don't even recognize. And that all came from being disciplined and going to the gym, eating healthy, going to therapy, making sure I was okay, like in all aspects of my life. That came from discipline because I had to stay disciplined in all of those things consistently for a very long time and still do in order to maintain it all.
I mean, you've said that discipline beats motivation at times, right? So why?
Does it? Motivation's a feeling, right?
Yeah,
Discipline's
exactly.
not. Discipline is something that you have to build and instill within yourself, and you have to continuously work at it in order for it to stick around. The
It's a
second you
practice.
start deviating away from it and start not being disciplined, you will lose that. Like, you stop going to the gym 3 days a week and start going, wishy washy. It won't be long before you're undisciplined and you're no longer going to the gym regularly, right? You start eating
Yeah,
ultra processed food all the time. It's not going to be long before you lose that discipline and you're falling back into that old habit.
it's a practice, right?
Yeah. So, but motivation, I can be motivated to stick this up my nose right now. I could not be. Like, it comes and goes. And if you rely on motivation for anything other than quick bursts of things, like if you're like, okay, I'm motivated to, I can't even actually think of something right now. But my point being is that motivation
Yeah.
is just that. It's a feeling that will come and go and it will work against you more than it'll work for you. Because if that's what you're relying on, the reason why you're stuck in the situation you're stuck in is because you've been pretty much unmotivated the entire time to do anything, right? You get motivated for a day or two, and then all of a sudden you're not motivated for 6 weeks. So really, how good has that motivation been working out for you up until this point? Just ask yourself that question, and that should give you the more definitive answer.
I agree on that. So, what's the relationship between physical strength and confidence, though? I mean, we were talking a bit about confidence before as well. Do you think it's casual, or does confidence actually come first?
I don't think the confidence comes. Well, it depends on the person, obviously, but for me, it sure didn't. The confidence came later as I started lifting heavier and heavier. And it
Yeah.
wasn't just about the lifting heavy. Like that obviously had an application to it, but being surrounded the type of friends that I have, I was very much like humbled very quickly because we're into boxing and MMA. So it was like it doesn't matter if you have muscles. It's like what can you do with those muscles, right?
Hmm.
So to me, like going to the gym and building strength was always kind of like a good goal, but it didn't really do a lot for my confidence, believe it or not, because I was still like all my friends were like, it doesn't matter if you have muscles. Because we weren't born like we weren't like that, right? So my more started coming from when I started like applying those muscles to actual like proper things like my life and like, okay, I can now tie my shoe. I remember the first time I was able to tie my shoes and not be winded. And oh boy, that was the most exciting time in my life at that day, right? I was like, oh my God, I tied my shoes. I didn't get out of breath. I got up all on my own. Like I didn't have to brace myself. Like that's to me like that's what kept me going, right? And that's what built that confidence in me. Is like, okay, I can now do this. Oh, look at that, I'm now able to run outside with my daughter for 10 minutes and I'm not like gasping for air and parents aren't looking at me while I'm a sweaty mess looking all gross because I can't keep up with a 5-year old or a 4-year old or whatever she was at you know what I mean, like
Yeah.
that to me built more confidence and more yeah, more confidence in me than any weight that I ever lifted in the gym. The weights I always lifted in the gym, the strength I always got, it helped. It did because as men, we want to feel strong and powerful. And I'm not gonna. I will be the first to tell you, women like it too. Okay, if you're the type of guy who's struggling with women and stuff like that, women do like an aesthetic body. Believe it or not,
Yeah.
um, they just don't like it when you have an aesthetic body and you're an egotistical asshole about it. I think that's the point people sometimes miss. But
Something like that.
I feel
So,
like when you build muscle and you build strength, it's because you set goals in order to do so. So I send it back to the goal setting. You set this goal to bench 225 and you finally did it. Yes, the benching of the 225 and being able to lift 225 pounds is awesome. But the fact that you did all of that work, all of that effort, all of that planning in order to do that one simple thing, to me means way more than just doing that one simple thing.
yeah.
Doing the simple thing is great, but you did all the work leading up to it, and that's where that confidence gets built. Not at the final stage of you lifting it. That I feel like it's the cherry on top. That's when it finally gets cemented. But all of it's kind of built around the journey to there, and then when you finally accomplish that thing, it's like a spearhead, right? You're like, oh, you did it, and then all of that work seems worth it, and now you're more inclined to do it again, but maybe on something else. Now you might do it for your job or the promotion you want or whatever it might be.
Yeah. I agree
Or I
on.
can sometimes ramble.
So, if you think about all the clients you've taught, or actually that you've had, what have they taught you about human nature?
That everyone's different. We all come from different walks of life. I
Yeah.
and I always knew that, but it becomes a lot. I was always very like I'm not your average personal trainer. I have ADHD and anxieties. I have depression. I don't gel well with people 9 times out of 10. I'm usually like an introvert. I like to stay at home most of the time. Most personal trainers are bubbly and they're excited all the time. And that's just not me, right? I look at health and fitness from a very different point of a mental health space and like just an important part of life, right? It's not a game to me. It's not a joke. Everyone's always talking about making fun of like making fitness fun and stuff like that. I'm like, sure, you should enjoy doing it, but like at the end of the day, whether you enjoy it or not, shouldn't be the dictator of it. You should just do it regardless. But sorry,
Yeah.
what was the question again? I think I just kind of trailed off there.
No, no, no. It's more like what you've what.
But what I've learned, yeah. So like for me, it's just everyone has their own struggles, everyone has their own limitations, and That's yeah, that's pretty much it. Like
Yeah.
we all just come from different areas of life, and we're all on our own journey, and just to respect everybody because we don't know what somebody else is going through. I've talked to people that walked into the gym that were clients of mine that on face value, I thought they were like they had it all figured out. They were like the bee's knees. And then after a couple of sessions, I realized, shit, man, these guys are more broken than I am. Like they don't have anything. Like so, what you see on that's another thing I guess I've learned from a lot of my clients is what you see at face value isn't always what's there. Right? It's kind of like that. What you see on Instagram isn't always the real picture. People can put
Yeah.
on a face for 20 minutes, a half an hour, and pretend to be something they're not, or pretend to be happy, or pretend to be mad, or whatever it might be. So,
Yeah, and I think actually what I've seen is sort of, and you actually said it yourself in terms of what drove you, that it's fear. I think a lot of people are sitting with fears themselves, and that's what sits underneath in many ways, right?
yeah, yeah, everyone, I feel like everyone, that's just a common occurrence with everybody, not just my clients, that's just
Yeah.
life in general. We all have fears that we need to overcome. I think even the most toughest, most masculine man out there has
Yeah.
his fears. You know what I mean?
Of
Whether
course.
it be even if it's just a simple fear of people not viewing him as masculine, it's
Mm.
still a fear. We all have them. It's how we
Totally.
handle those fears. Is what we do about it. Are we going to allow those fears to hold us back? Like as I said, I have anxiety and depression. I'm a big introvert. Like I have problems, but I had to find a way to step outside of that in order to do what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
I had to learn how to be a people person. I had to learn how to talk with people and how to shut off my anxieties for a little bit while I'm in that environment, right? And had to learn how to do that. That didn't just come naturally. That took time and practice and therapy and good days and bad days and
No, I mean, I think there you have a good point. You have a good point of view there, and I think the a lot of people are when it comes to fear. I like to talk about how a lot of people let it drive your life, right? And I'd rather say, "Hey, fear, you're there, but you can sit in the back seat. I know you're there. I'm not, we're not going to get rid of the fear, but we can become more aware of it."
I think fear can be a useful thing at the end of the day. Like I'm still fearful of things, and I think that's what drives me to continue doing what I'm doing. Right?
Yeah.
I'm afraid of not succeeding because I know if I don't succeed, I can't provide for my child. I know that scares me. Right? So fear is a healthy thing as long as we don't let it consume us and control us in a negative way where it's self-destructive. Right?
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
and I feel like that's almost any emotion at the end of the day, whether it's happiness or sadness or depression or whatever it might be. If we give it too much power and let it consume us entirely, it comes back to that whole balancing. We almost need a balance of all those emotions, and we need to learn how to cope with them, especially the negative ones, like fear that can sometimes take over a little bit more easier
Yeah.
and be a little bit more self-destructive.
I mean, as I said, I mean, I think the it's more for me. It is more about if you let it be in the back seat, so it doesn't drive everything you do in life. But make sure you know you have it there because, as you say as well,
Exactly. Yeah.
you need. It's a healthy thing to have because it's about self-preservation to some extent as well, right?
100%. Yeah.
Yeah,
No, it's a good analogy they say about keeping the back seat. I like that.
yeah. So how important do you think self-respect is before you enter a relationship with someone?
Massive. Don't even do it if you don't have if you don't, it's just not going to be good. Honestly, you in my personal opinion, you have to love yourself and you have to respect yourself
Yeah,
before you can love and respect somebody else on that level. It's not that person's job to fix you,
yeah,
right?
exactly.
That's asking a lot of somebody, and especially somebody that you're just starting to know and understand
An
and
impossible task
develop
to
a
put on
life
someone
with.
else.
Yeah, like legitimately, again, it almost boils back to like it almost pisses me off that that's a question in today's day and age. Like it's been talked about, like this was talked about back when I was a kid, for Christ's
Yeah,
sake.
yeah, I agree with you. I agree with
Like
you, but I still
beating
see
a
if
dead horse,
someone.
but it still stands, right? But no, like if you just look at the history of people that do it, it 9 times out of 10 doesn't really pan out very well for either person, right? You're either going to end up hurting yourself, hurting her, or him,
Yeah,
or both.
I mean,
It
and
creates toxic environments. It creates disdain, and that's I feel like people constantly doing stuff like that is what's created the modern dating world.
yeah, that I can agree on, and I think the I like to talk about the fact that I think you almost need a driver license to go into a relationship.
I've been saying that for a lot of things, not just a relationship. I
Yeah,
say
yeah,
that
like to
in
become a
personal training. I
parent, to
say
become,
that
I mean, everything, right? It's there's a lot of things, but
if I need a fishing license, but I can go out and have 10 kids, there's a problem. Like,
yeah, exactly. And I mean, I have friends who have adopted kids, right? And I think the struggle they go through and the vetting they go through is massive, right? And they would be amazing parents, or they are amazing
yeah.
parents as well. And then you have other people who can just get pregnant and have a kid, and they're nowhere near providing the same type of maybe emotional safety and support for a kid.
In North America, you can have parents in and out of jail on a regular basis, constantly having the cops called on them. Then they get pregnant and they get to keep their child all fine and dandy until they start doing things wrong again, right?
Yeah.
But as you said, you could have two loving parents with a track record of gold. One's a teacher, and one's a freaking priest, and they're well respected in their community, and they got to pay $100,000 and wait a year. And it's like, make that make sense. And then you find out, oh, well, there's like 30 kids in that orphanage or 60 kids in that orphanage. Yet we have 50 applications here, parents who want kids.
But no,
Make
I
it
mean,
make
yeah,
sense.
but
Like,
then
what's happening?
it's a syntax error in the system, right?
Oh, and everything is like everything's designed for profit at the end of the day. So when you look at stuff like that, you know that somebody's profiting off of the wait times, off of all of this sort of stuff, and that's why it is the way it is. And
Yeah. I think the next question here, by the way, I think is a giveaway, right? I think, can someone truly love another person if they don't respect themselves?
well, love and respect are two very different things in my worldview. Like for example, like when my daughter was first born, I did not respect myself. I can tell you right now, I love the shit out of her. I loved my wife at
Mhm.
the time, but I didn't respect myself. So I don't want to sit there and say no, but like I didn't love them with the full capacity that I could have. I will say that I could have loved them more. I could have been showing up for myself to show them that I love. I wasn't showing them that I love them through my actions when at that time, right? But to sit there and say I didn't love them because I didn't respect myself wouldn't be a truthful statement. So
Yeah,
I feel like
that's a
yeah,
fair point.
I feel like you can't. Uh, the difference being there though is that I grew into not respecting myself. And then that was given to me. You know what I mean? In the sense, like I wasn't
Yeah,
like
yeah.
I was single and didn't respect myself, and then went into it. In that regard, I would say no. Like you can't find love and have that grow if you have no respect for it. And if you do, it's going to be again. There's going to be like that dark cloud over it initially, and I think that's more so what it comes down to. Is like you want to start off on something that should be beautiful, that
Mhm.
should be amazing, with this dark cloud hovering over it, right? So,
Yeah, but I think the I like
but
I
that
tried
one's a
to
little different. I like.
I tied that quite often into the fact around, we talked about self love and stuff like that, that you love yourself, right? And I think for me, it starts with, first you need to start with self awareness, that you become aware of yourself. Then you can start accepting yourself. It's like self acceptance.
Yep.
Then you can like yourself. And once you like yourself, you can move into loving yourself at times. And I think that also is not like a, hey, I love myself and now I'm fixed. I think that actually is a very fluctuating scale, because depending on the day, what happens in your life or in the world around you, you might be from going from loving yourself to actually being accepting yourself or liking yourself, right? And then it goes up and down depending on where you're
No,
at.
exactly. Yeah, that I agree with 100%.
Yeah. So I think that that's just something, I think a lot of, because I see, when you're, I mean, you're also dating women now, right? And then when you're in that game, is like a lot of them are like, hey, I want to love myself first, right? Okay, that's like, that could be an utopia, because you can maybe chase that forever in one way.
No, exactly. And like when I say love yourself, I guess it is more of like a respect thing because there are certain days I still don't love myself. I think that's just us as humans. We just have those.
Yeah.
Everyone has those days, right? But I know that as long as I show up, I'll always have that I'll always have that baseline of respect for myself, right? Because I know even on my darkest days that I'm still doing what I need to do, even if I'm having an off day. I am a firm believer, and I look at weekly, monthly, yearly averages. I don't
Yeah.
take things day by day, and I don't take a day and say, okay, well, that made up my whole week. Or if I had a bad day, fine, I'll let it be. If I had a bad week, okay, now I might start addressing something. If I had a bad month, okay, I know something's going on. But I never let a bad day carry over to two if I can help it, right? So
No,
I think that's a big thing.
I think you actually said something at the beginning here as well that I think talks about it in a good way is that when you take accountability for yourself, that actually is a way of respecting yourself as well.
Yeah, exactly. Which is very important. Like I said, accountability is the number one, the very first step of doing almost anything, right?
Yeah,
You have to say, okay, there's a problem that I'm a part of and I need to fix. And until you can do that, you'll be spinning your wheels because you won't have the direction.
exactly. Um, what do you think women misunderstand about men?
We're not all tough, like no, I don't want to say tough, but they're not all like hard-headed, emotionless creatures. You know what I mean? Like
Yep.
some of the biggest, toughest guys I know have a heart of gold and would give your shirt off the back. But if you look at them from afar, you wouldn't even want to like sneeze around them because you're afraid they would rip your head off, right? But the second they open their mouth, they're like massive teddy bears. So
Yeah.
I just feel like if, and again, maybe that's like, it's weird though, because like, how often is it women are approaching men in that sort of regard anyway, right? So like,
In
doesn't really
today's
matter,
world,
I guess. But I feel like men are just mostly misunderstood because, as I said, we tend to look rugged and tough for the most part, or unapproachable, or whatever it might be. And until we approach them, the first off, they don't know any better, right? And I just feel like,
yeah. I mean, I think
but
ultimately
I
we
really
all,
don't know that one to be honest. Like, I'm not sure because I don't think about like what women think and stuff. I tried going down that route a while ago and I just got confused. It hurt my head. Women
yeah.
confuse the shit out of me, so I try not to think what they think. I just
What do you think men misunderstand about women, though?
um. Hmm, I don't know. I'm honestly, I've just never really thought about that question. To be fair, I'm sure there's lots, but on both sides of it, to be fair. But
Yeah.
let me
That's
think.
okay. I think for me, I think a lot of men, I think are. I mean, you mentioned here before as well, right? That if young guys are going there and they feel insecure, they don't know how to approach a woman. It's about actually just being yourself, right? That a woman actually, I think, will. Yes, they can obviously aesthetics is one thing that might be attractive, but I think even more so, just being authentic
Oh,
and being your masculine self, I think is actually coming a long way.
yeah, no, I completely agree with that. I said showing up with confidence and not like a
Yeah.
narcissistic level of confidence, but just like a genuine level of self-respect. And, as I said, when it comes back to like the guys walking out their shoulders, limp handshakes, not making eye contact. If you show up to introduce yourself to a woman, you stand straight, you have your shoulders back, you stand like static, and you present yourself as a masculine man in that healthy way, that's going to go a lot further than, hi, how's it going? I'm Steve. You know,
That's
women
not.
are typically going to quickly respond to that. Doesn't feel very welcoming and very warming, right?
Are you
So,
having a nice day today?
so I think that would actually be the most like misunderstood on both sides. Is like men don't need to be afraid of women. They're not some mystical creature
No.
that exists on some third world that have all this sort of power that you give them for some whatever reason because they have boobs. I don't know. They're people. They have feelings and emotions, and you can talk to them like people. And men aren't just going to be assholes and don't just want you for your body. There are lots of men out there who want a genuine connection, who do want to actually talk and build something real with
Yeah,
you. That
the
is a very real thing.
the
And
vast
yes, on
majority.
both sides, you're gonna have to filter out the shit. That's life. You're always gonna have to filter through the shit, right?
Yeah.
But both sides of the spectrum do exist where you do have the guys that really do want to be attentive and they want to perform their masculine roles, but they're also going to be there for you emotionally and things like that too. And on the same side, women aren't just bitches. They're not just going to sit there and use you for your money and do all this sort of stuff. There are genuine women out there who want to complement your life, who want to support you, who want to be there for you when you are having a bad day and all that, right? But you
Yeah,
have men that just think women are after you for your wallet and your fucking six pack, and women just think you're only after them for their boobs, and it's
yeah,
yeah.
I agree with you, and I think ultimately, whether you're a man or a woman, I think we all just want to be chosen in the end of the
Oh,
day.
100%. I said that about the fear. One of my fears about
Yeah,
dying alone. That's exactly what I was referring to. Like,
yeah.
I don't want to live my life and not have to share that with somebody special, right? Like, that is a huge fear of mine.
I think
Especially being
what
single over the last year and a half. I feel like that fear is starting to like stem up again a little bit more than what it used to.
Yeah, but I think you're. I'm not too worried about you, Joey.
No, no, I know. It's just one of those things, like,
But
when
it's
you're
a
kind of
but
going
it's a
through it.
fear, and I can agree with you that you can acknowledge that fear. And I mean, I know that I had a fear of abandonment, right? I was desperately afraid of being abandoned as well, and that probably me. I mean, my marriage was. I was in that relationship for more than 20 years,
Oh,
um,
wow.
so 23 years. Um, And actually, no, I mean, that was nothing. I mean, not everything was bad in that relationship, far from it, right? But in the end of the day, when you grow apart and you come to a point, I guess, when you make decisions. But
Mhm.
I think at the same time, I think I stayed longer in the relationship just because I was afraid of being abandoned, right? I was
Oh,
afraid of being alone.
100%. Yeah. Me and my ex, we were together, I said 13 years. Now, the
Yeah,
nice thing is we're best friends. We still live together. Cause we have a daughter together, right? But she
yeah,
is literally my best friend. When we ended things, we said, we've always been such compatible friends. We've always gotten along so great. Why end that part of our relationship, right? Why not
yeah,
just, we're not really compatible as a husband wife kind of deal. So let's just end that. We can, and honestly, best decision we ever made. Life has been so much better ever since then. We have great chemistry and relationship now, and it's much healthier, right? And so
yeah,
sometimes it is like that, right? Like, there's
yeah,
no rule to this whole life thing. Like, everyone has all these like weird rules they place on things, like, oh, you're supposed to get married and have the white picket fence and have the dog and three kids, and the American dream kind of shit. That's what we get over here. I don't know if you guys get the same stuff over there, but that's kind of what's pushed on us over here, right? Is like
yeah.
what's
Yeah.
normal.
I also have a good relationship with my ex-wife. Actually, we do spend a lot of time together as friends, and we have two kids, right? And I think there's an interesting thing though that I think what she did before we got divorced was really let's stay together till the kids move out.
Mhm. That's very common, I find.
Yeah, yeah, but I think for me what I see there is kids learn relationships from their parents, right? So if they see that accepting certain things, particularly when you're a teenager, in your parents' relationship, that can set you up for failure in your future relationships if you're not actually. I mean, for me, the most important thing is I want to show my kids how to be loving in a relationship. That they see what is it to be receiving love and to give love, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's like you gave your example with your grandparents. I think they gave you an example about how it is to love each other in a
Yes,
good way.
exactly, and that stayed with me my entire life.
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, but if you think about how, and I know you told me about your father, and he passed away when you were very young, but it might have been even different if he would have lived on, and you guys were your parents would have stayed together or something like that, right?
Potentially.
Um, but you never know. I mean, but I think a lot of to that point, right? I mean, I think a lot of couples stay together because hey, it's better for the kids if we stay together,
I think so, yeah.
and I can tell you, my daughter, she literally said before we got divorced that, Dad, I think it's better that you and mom live separately than stay together and be unhappy.
Well,
And that, to me, I can tell you, hearing that from your own daughter, I think was one of the most powerful things I've heard.
I can imagine. Yeah, that's a very self-aware child.
Yeah, yeah, but it also tells me that it's like she'd rather see us happy not living together than us staying together for them.
Yeah, but I was saying, like, how old was she when she said that?
She was just around 16.
Oh, okay, so a little bit. I was thinking maybe a little bit younger, but yeah, no, that's
No,
good.
no, no, but still, I mean, she could have probably told me that when she was 14 or 15 as well, because
Yeah, yeah.
but it was like that's when she said it, right? So It was it was quite powerful, to be
I
honest.
can imagine. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Um, so on that theme, though, so one of the themes we talk a lot about on this podcast is around emotional safety. Do you think a man can be deeply masculine while also being emotionally available? And what,
100%. I think that comes in line with being masculine, is being emotional. That's part of masculinity, in my opinion.
I agree with you, but this is sort of what does that look like? And this is actually the key thing. I think this is so important for younger men to hear, to be honest.
So when you say what does that look like as far as
How
what
do we
exactly?
show up? How do we show up with a woman, for example? How do we represent ourselves?
Well, I think it looks different for every person, but at the end of the day, you show up and you you just stay true to your word. When you say you're going to do something, you do it. You don't you don't use violence and scare tactics or demeaning language when arguing, right? Um you plan things, for Christ's sake. Like, one thing I've noticed with guys is like they have no initiative to do things, right? They don't want to plan dates, they don't want to do
Yeah,
stuff like, and you have to listen. Women tell you all the time what they want, what they need, and I find a lot of guys, because they're so emotionally removed from things, that they don't sit there and actually listen and
yeah,
absorb what women say, right? So I feel like that's all the bread and butter of it at the end of the day.
yeah,
And then when you're having, and then the next part of that would be how you deal with your own emotions, right? When you're having a bad day, are you going to shut down and not say anything? Are you going to go to a bottle and start drinking? Are you going to lash out because you're frustrated? Like, as opposed to just coming home and saying, honey, I've had a bad day at work. My boss has been up my ass all day. I stubbed my toe right before I got in the door. I'm just in a damn mood. Please forgive me if I'm a little bit snappy tonight, as opposed to just being snappy tonight. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah. It's giving a warning, right? And I think that actually is taking accountability for your emotions. And I think this is one of the things I see both men and women are doing wrong today, that they are snapping. Because, I mean, if you think about it, a lot of women are going at men in the way that they're complaining about a man. You need to change. You need to do this. I've seen so many women telling, literally their man to change, right? They need to do something different. You need to do
Yeah.
something. Um,
Sorry.
I think that's just a sad thing when you start seeing those things, right?
Yeah, that always breaks my heart, especially like the whole changing people thing, right? I've never been on board with that one. If you can't accept somebody for who they are, like within reason, like obviously if I were to get together with a woman and I secretly found out she was, snorting crack every single day or something like that, I might ask her to change or something, like something that would be betterment for her health. But
Hmm.
in the real world things that we're obviously referring to, yeah, like if I were to get with a woman and she loved, I don't know, cartoons, for example, or she loved to have her favorite stuffed animal or whatever it might be, and I were to sit there and be like, that's stupid. Why would you like that? Like, yeah, like that to me doesn't seem right. Like that's always seemed really. And on the flip side of that, like I find, and this is one area where I do find it's a lot more one sided. Men
Hmm.
aren't allowed to enjoy things. I find
Yeah.
girls, they find out a man plays a video game, it's looked at as an ick. They like to collect car things, it's an ick. They like to anything that men type to enjoy all of a sudden, it's looked at as an ick unless it's like working on a car or woodworking. You know what I mean? It's like
Yeah. I mean,
I don't like that. You know what I mean?
I agree with you. And I spoke to a sexologist here in Sweden, and he mentioned a client he had, and she had an ick about, oh, she would actually discard a man if she had the wrong shoe brand.
Yeah, yeah,
Like, come on, I could buy a new pair of shoes. It's like, you discard a person because of the shoes, not about the actual values or the
yeah.
traits in the person, right?
You hear that all the time. It's a running joke in the phone world. If like, oh, the girls are like, oh, if he doesn't have an apple, like that green messaging or whatever,
Yeah.
they'll say, oh, if he doesn't have an apple, he's not worth dating, kind of deal. And it's a phone. Like what?
It's not the end of the world, right? It's just
No,
yeah,
but I find that's a very common occurrence. That, as I said, like the materialistic side and like the men can't enjoy things
yeah,
is a problem because that's like the changing of people, right? Like if you meet a guy and his leisure time is to play video games with the guys on a Friday night, but he shows up every other time. He goes to work, he still does things with the kids, he still does stuff with you. But on Friday nights at 10 o'clock, he likes to play Call of Duty with his friends for 2 hours. And if that's a problem for you, that you all of a sudden freak out, oh, it just so happens every Friday night at 9:30, you have all of a sudden a long line of issues with your husband that prevents him now from playing that game. Like to me, that's pretty messed up too.
yeah. I
Men
agree.
should be allowed to enjoy things and should be allowed to do whatever activity is they like to do, even if it is childlike. I get in shit for my child stuff, and I'll tell everybody like I didn't get to have a childhood. I didn't start like living my normal life until I was like 23 years old. So I
Mm.
missed out on all of it. So yeah, sometimes I like to watch some cartoons or I like to play my Nintendo or but that's after my responsibilities have been taken care of.
Of
That's
course,
my time,
you need
right?
me time. Everybody needs me time, right?
Yeah, and everyone has me time. I just find it funny that like guys and how they're treated with how they use their me time is a lot different than how women are treated when how they use their me time.
Yeah, and it's kind of sad if your me time turns into an ick for another person.
Especially if it's not hurting anybody. If it's something
Exactly,
that's bringing you joy. And it's not like I'm asking you to do it with me, so why do you care? Like, you know,
exactly. It's kind of bizarre when you look at it. To be
yeah,
honest. So, what do you think scares men? Like, really scares men today?
rejection,
Yeah,
probably. I feel like that's why they won't approach the woman. That's why they won't ask for that raise. They won't go and ask for that promotion. They won't go and apply for that job,
so it's
right?
about reaction. That's the underlying fear.
Yeah, I feel like that's probably the biggest one, honestly.
Yeah, I can imagine. But if you then have a 20-year-old, and a 20-year-old would ask you, "How do I become someone worth following?" What would you tell him?
Start being yourself. Start setting, like I said, it goes back to the goal setting, right? If you're not the type of person who's setting any goals, you're not showing up for yourself where it matters, you're already cooked. You got to be doing the bare minimum for yourself first. You got to be showing up for yourself, prioritizing your health,
Yeah,
making sure that you're okay before you can start worrying about the world and how to show up for them. So the very first step you should be doing is looking internally. Okay, what am I not doing for myself right now that I know I should be doing? Am I dressing appropriately? Am
yeah,
I clean shaven? Am I showered? Am I at least presenting myself as a respectable member of the community? And then from there, you can start the building blocks of more things.
yeah,
But if you're showing up with baggy, unwashed clothes, your hair's unkept and unwashed, and you're expecting that job opportunity, you're expecting that girl to like you, you're expecting those opportunities just to fall upon your lap, even though you're standing there doing nothing. I hate to break it to you, you have nobody to blame but yourself when shit doesn't go your way.
yeah. And so again, it goes back to accountability.
Accountability, I guess. Well, it pretty much always comes back to that.
Yeah, exactly. So I want to ask you some quick questions here. So just pick a choice here. So strength or comfort,
Strength,
purpose or happiness,
purpose,
respect or love,
respect,
routine or freedom.
routine.
Dis-
Well, actually, that's a 50-50 one.
yeah,
That's 50-50. I think a nice healthy balance of freedom and routine is needed in life.
yeah. Discipline or motivation,
Discipline.
books or podcasts.
People are going to hate you for this, but books.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that. I like reading. I read a lot. So
I know
definitely.
podcasts are all the rage right now.
So it's a habit that has had the biggest impact on your life.
The biggest habit,
Yeah.
believe
That.
it or not, having a bedtime routine.
Mm,
I know it might sound kind of like niche or weird, but like just having I have like a 15-minute before bedtime routine that I pretty much do every day, and it's obscure. I'm not even going to share it with people because it's weird and it's just
yeah.
what I do to help me sleep. but it works. It puts me in my comfort zone. It goes against what most people tell you to do before bed, because it has to, like, I'll be on my phone, for example, but I
Hmm.
have like a specific thing that I'll either watch a specific thing or I'll read a specific thing that I know doesn't stimulate my brain. Essentially, I will share it with you, I guess, at this point. Like, I'll either read a really boring article or I'll
Yeah.
watch something very monotone and boring as all hell, but it exhausts my eyes down and bores my brain out where I'm no longer thinking about things. And that within 15 minutes, I'm always able to fall asleep within like, for the most part. I'd say a good 90% of the time. Having that bedtime routine and being able to, before that, I would stay up for hours and just sit there and toss and turn and let my mind race. And it would cause me to not be productive the next day because I'd be so tired.
Yeah,
So
that's
having a set bedtime routine and making sure I was getting a bare minimum of 6 hours of sleep a day was one of the most game changing things for me, because I was able to control my appetite more when I was losing weight. I had more energy during the day. My mood wasn't fluctuating as much. So there was a lot of compounding good things that happened
yeah.
just from that one little thing.
Mm. That's a powerful thing, though. I mean, I think it's great that you actually have a routine like that. I think that helps a lot of people, and
And
just
it's
making sure, yeah,
everyone's different. I have my one client. We set their bedtime routine. They have to have a hot shower 5 minutes before they basically have their hot shower, and then that's the last thing they do. They put on their PJs and go
yeah,
directly into bed, and that's been working wonders for them. That's a more common
good for
practice,
them, right?
actually, right? So if you can set a bedtime routine, to at least set yourself up with 6 or more hours of sleep a day. If you're the type of person who's getting under that, that's going to be a huge game changer, because it's very hard to tackle a lot of things when you're low energy, low mood, you're hungry all the time. And that all happens when you haven't slept, and as well as many other mental health side effects.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are. When I grew up, I heard this thing that you should never go to sleep angry when you were with your partner, right?
I've heard that before, yeah.
Yeah, and I think if you think about it, it actually is probably one of the worst advices to some extent, because sometimes when you're so tired, you start saying things in the middle of the night that actually is even more hurtful
Yeah.
than
I believe in the whole, like, if, as long as the fight isn't like, you cheated on her or something like
no,
that.
no,
Like, if
no.
it's like a normal day to day, like, argument, fight, disagreement, I'm a firm believer in like that pause button. Okay, like, you know what? We're gonna pause this argument until tomorrow.
Just sleep on
It's
it.
not
Yeah,
going anywhere. We're not making any traction. Let's just go to bed. I love you. You love me. We're both pieces of shit. We hate each other. We know. Let's just go to sleep and continue this tomorrow. Like,
exactly. That's the most healthy thing you can do, and take accountability for yourself and the relationship in
but
that sense.
that all stems, and this is one thing that I find is lacking on both ends too, is communication. A lot of people don't know how to talk, right?
Yeah, yeah, for
That
sure.
stems from both sides. Women don't know how to talk to men. Men don't know how to talk to women, and men don't know how to, or men or women, just in that relationship context. I mean,
Yeah, I agree.
um,
I agree with you, and I think
and I
that's
feel
the
like if you could
thing.
have that more open discussion and more of that dialogue, you would be able to do those sort of things, like having the pause button and not going to bed pissed off and angry and seething because you're just heated an argument. You know.
I agree with you. I agree with you. So, do you think there's one message every father should hear?
Yeah, absolutely. Your kids always come first. I don't give a shit. Like, you know, any real father already knows this, but I do find, like, you do get into pockets of the internet and stuff. It doesn't matter what it is, whether it's a game you want or shirt you want, whether it's that vacation with the boys that you wanted to go on. You show up for your kid first. You
Mm.
decided to have a child. That is your responsibility. Man the fuck up and show up for your kid. I hate hearing about, like, oh, daddy had a camping trip, so he didn't go to my baseball game that he promised me to go to. If you make a promise to your fucking kid, you keep that promise. I don't give a shit.
Mm.
Um, just, and, like, love your children, like, and show them that you love them. Tell them that you love them. Don't be afraid to tell your kids
Yeah.
that you love them, for Christ's sake. I know that's not as common as it was back in our day growing up. Like,
Mm.
I don't know if it was, again, you're from a different area too. Like, in North America, I don't know how things differ from here to there. But, like, growing up, like, it was very uncommon for a dad to be like, I love you, son. Come here and give me a hug. Like, that was
Yeah.
unheard. for a lot of people, right?
Yeah, I
And
think yeah, we probably sort it here, but I think it's sort of I think the Western world in general, I think men has been taught not to show emotions in that sense, right? And that's quite universal.
yeah, so show emotions with your kids.
Yeah,
That'd be my biggest piece of advice then. Show emotion with your kid. Show them
yeah.
that it's okay to love and to show love. And again, if you make a fucking promise, you show up and you be there. Like, God willing that something happens, you can't be there, then fine. But
So, do you think there's one message then for every young man that they should hear?
start the process of building your confidence now. Start with the little things, right? Start by making your bed in the morning, brushing your teeth, respecting your parents. Like the
Yeah,
very common things. Go to school. I know, like everyone, like the Andrew Tates in the world say school is stupid, and I understand the argument against certain things, but it's still a requirement. We still got to get it done. Get your basic schooling in. Go to the gym, work on yourself, don't worry. If you're 16, 17 years old, don't even worry about women right now. Worry about yourself. Worry about building your friendship and your networks and your education and all that sort of stuff. If you're 20, 21, 22 years old and you don't have things figured out and you're confused about jobs and women and all this, I can help you out right now. Don't worry about women.
yeah,
They will come, right? Let's
they
get
will
rid of
come.
that fear and that kind of problem right now because this is an extra issue causing you problems. Worry about getting a steady income. Worry about finding a routine, like a daily routine that works for your life that you're able to sustain.
Yeah,
And the earlier you're able to figure it out, the more success you're going to have later on. I didn't figure it out until I was like in my early 30s. That costed me a lot. I have
mm,
to now take a lot of accountability for my placement in life and not being where I want to be because I spent too many years sticking around and not prioritizing my future, not prioritizing my health, not prioritizing my finances.
yeah,
That will catch up to you if you don't do those things early on. So the earlier you can start doing those things and start that process, the significantly better off you're going to be. And I don't know if people are paying attention to the world around them, but things have not been getting better as the years have been going on. They've been getting worse. They've been getting more expensive. They're getting more challenging. So you might want to start prioritizing that sort of stuff now and not wait until it's too late.
yeah. That's a good message. So, I often say that relationships don't reveal who we wish we were; they reveal who we are. And with that, though, what has love taught you about yourself?
Hmm, that's a deep question. That's like a therapy question. Holy shit.
Yeah, it's quarter to 12 here at night, so I'm in the deep zone now.
What has love taught me about myself? That is deep. Honestly, I think the number one thing it's taught me is that I'm capable of loving myself. Not myself, but
Mm,
I'm capable of loving. Like for a long time, I thought I was broken. I thought there was something wrong with me because I
mm,
didn't know what love really meant. Now, I talked about my grandparents and like the kind of impact they had on me, but it wasn't until much later. It wasn't much later in life that I met them, right? So for the first 9 years of my life, my experiences of what like healthy relationships and parents and all that was very, very bad. So I didn't understand what love was. I got to meet my grandma and my grandpa, which was very short lived because my grandfather died very quickly after. But I at least got to get a taste of that, right?
mm-hmm.
But then after that happened, more stuff happened at home. I didn't see my grandma again for like 4 years after that. And I never really understood what it was like to love something. Like it didn't make sense to me because I was never shown what it felt like in that regard. Um, and then the first time I actually fell in love and I had that relationship and I've noticed that person truly loved me, that wasn't forced. It wasn't like a grandparent love or a parent love or something that felt like they had to love me. You know what I mean? They chose me. They decided they were going to love me without any outside manipulation. They're not my
Yeah,
parent. There's no pressure for them to love me. You know what I mean? In that sort of regard. And I realized throughout that process that love is a choice. Like we can choose to love or we can choose not to, but it is a choice, and it's kind of like the feeling. It's something we have to practice and work on and develop. It's not something you're just going to be inherently good at and perfect at right off the
Yeah.
hop, right? So I learned love is a spectrum of things, and it's a muscle that you almost have to grow in a sense, like everything else. And being loved taught me that, like, that I'm capable of loving, but that also love is something that I have to work on. And
That is beautiful, Joey. And for me, I can tell you, I see love is it's almost like a verb to me, right? It's an active choice, as you said. It's an active choice you have to make every time. So it's like a lot of people think it's a feeling, and I think a lot of people also think about the way when you fall in love with someone, when you know that feeling there is sort of you're high on drugs, right? That all the substances you have in your body that just starts bubbling everywhere, right? It's not
yep.
necessarily love can also be much more about actually standing still when there's a storm happening around you, right? In the
Oh,
relationship.
100%.
When people finish listening to this conversation, though, what's the one thing you hope stays with them?
Just that, as men, if it's men listening to this, I understand that the societal pressures that is placed upon us to be, this like Andrew Tate style of masculine male. I understand the popularity of it and the flashiness of it. Sorry, the cars, the women, the suits,
Yeah,
but they're a 0.0001% of the population that were able to make it work for them. We're talking there's what, 8 billion people in the world, and if
yeah,
8 billion people in the world, there's probably 15 of them that can figure that out and make it work for them. So if you think you're going to be one of them, I'm sorry to break it to you, you're not. I'm not trying to be a dick to you, but you're just not. So if you try to act like that, you are not going to get the same things they get. You're going to get laughed at, you're going to get ridiculed, and you're going to wind up very, very alone very quickly.
yeah,
You're not going to end up with the Ferraris. You're not going to end up with the 10 chicks hanging off your waist at the nightclub. You're not going to end up with the bank accounts overflowing with money just because you decided to be a dick and to treat women like shit and to treat other people like shit. It just doesn't, that's not reality. That is an Instagram, TikTok fantasy that they're trying to push onto you to sell you programs and to sell you coaching and to get your views for money. That is just
yeah,
not fucking reality. I hope men really understand that. That is the biggest takeaway. That is not reality. That is a scam, and it will hurt you significantly more than it will ever help you. And if you don't believe me, ask any woman out there. Because the only women that disagree with that are, again, that 20 to 30 women that are hanging out with the Andrew Tates because they want the money and they want the
yeah.
clout. When you ask any sensible woman out there, they're going to tell you the exact same thing. The second you even so much as start talking like that, goodbye.
Yeah.
So,
I agree with you completely, Joey. Thank you so much for taking the time.
absolutely. Thank you very much for having me, brother. I really do appreciate it. It was a great talk.
I agree with you. I appreciate conversations like this because they remind us that strength isn't simply measured by how much we can lift or endure. It's measured by the responsibility we're willing to carry, the courage to look honestly at ourselves, the willingness to protect without controlling, to lead without dominating, and to keep growing long after the world tells us we've become adults. If today's conversation resonated with you, please share with someone who needs to hear it, follow the podcast, and remember, stay open, stay honest, and stay human.